How's it going, guys? Coffee here. Today I wanted to go over my league starter recommendation for Frostbitten Gemma for the Clockwork Ballet season. This is planned to basically be a leveling guide to go along with the Maxwell written guide that I've written. So there will be the written guide in the description, and this is going to give you some more details as well as cover a little bit of what's in the guide. Pretty much for this character, you do get to level using Ice Lances. This is the skill that you start off with. And then you will end up transitioning it into the Frost Terra full build, somewhere around level 70 or so, or in the later 60s. It depends on when you start to get your pieces of gear. So for the leveling experience, again, you'll get your Ice Lances from the very beginning. You'll get your Frost Terra around level 7 or 8, and you'll just have that on, but you won't. It'll just kind of be a secondary skill that gives your Ice Lances additional damage. So these do have synergy while you're leveling up, which is really, really nice. That it deals extra damage when the enemy is standing on top of a Frost Terra, so you can use that to basically really push down bosses very, very quickly. And then that will really, really help you along the way. In regards to the leveling itself, again, we do start on this Goddess of Knowledge tree here. And with this, while you are leveling, you are going to be running this beacon here, which again is going to give you extra spell bursts on your Ice Lances. And then as you actually get further along to where you have unlocked the Arcanist tree here, as well as the extra freeze duration and your cold pulse, then at that point you do end up swapping this off of beacon onto winter, because you will start actually having 100% frostbite rating on enemies, which means winter obviously gets a lot better when things always have 100% frostbite rating, so they are then taking 50% additional damage at all the times from your gear, or from your spells rather. And then we have insight here for some additional spell damage as well. Some adjustments that will most likely that you will probably end up wanting to do early on is it is going to be recommended that you actually pick up these intelligence nodes instead of this life and energy shield for leveling, because in the new league, the intelligence is now a damage multiplier. So for every 1 intelligence that you have, you will be getting 0.5% rather damage. So say you have 500 intelligence, that will give you 250% more damage. So because of that, obviously getting a lot of int is going to help with that. And then everything else, we're still just going to be scaling spell levels as we normally do. But then we will end up dropping some other things. So what ends up happening is this attacking cast speed, you end up getting to drop some of this later, so you can pick up this extra life and energy shield. But for the early leveling process, you'll just take the extra damage because you won't need the extra defenses starting out. Arcanist will be your second tree here, and this is because this Frostbitten node is one of the best offensive and defensive major talents that are in the game. This makes it to where anytime you hit an enemy with even 1 cold damage, so this is something you can utilize on basically any character. If you hit them with at least 1 cold damage, they'll instantly get frozen because they'll instantly get 100 frostbite rating, and then they will take 60% additional damage while they are frozen. So Frostbitten Gemma has a ton of synergy with this, so everything you're doing, again, you're still just stacking cold damage. You're getting your energy shield and your defenses here, and then you are just putting points into a skill area for your Terras, and then you have your chance to frostbite and extra frostbite damage here. When you are actually leveling this up and just using Ice Lances early on, you'll end up picking up this attack and cast speed instead of the skill area early on, and you'll make this swap when you fully swap over to the Frost Terra version of the build. But other than that, the other things that are going to stay here is you will end up picking up the sealed mana, you will end up taking this freeze duration, and then you'll end up taking the frostbite inflicted as well. And then for your 32 trait, you are taking extreme coldness, which this gives you minus 7% cold resistance, stacking up to 20 times. And all of your freeze effect that you are getting, there is freeze effect mods that you can get as well, which also scales this mod here, because this mod goes directly on the freeze. So when you scale the freeze, it also scales how much resistance is being lowered by. And then the last tree here is going to be psychic. This tree is specifically for damage over time, so it's not actually going to do anything for the ice lances, but it is going to be the thing that you use in order to transition over to the full Terra version of the build. So the reason why we are waiting until level 70 for to swap over to the Frost Terra version of the build is mainly because you need to ensure that you get Reap Purification here, which is all the way at the end of the tree, but you don't want to give up your Frostbitten in order to get that. So basically, once you actually have about 20 points into this tree is when you can actually start considering making that swap. But you are going to want to ensure that you actually have some of your gear before you do that. So Reap Purification itself does require you to reap in order for you to basically get all of that large damage off of it from Reap Purification. So you are going to need to ensure that you have a few different reap sources out there. So we have reap here. On this, what you can end up doing is you can actually put a reap onto your ice lances here. So you can actually put Reaping Agony on here to assist with that early game transition. And then also on your Frost Terra, because you'll most likely be using Kingly Armor, or if you're not, then you can always just swap the control spell or the speed up formation, depending on if you're already wearing Corrupted Marrow or not. You can swap either of these here with Reaping Agony as well, and that will help basically push that early damage until you get the reap sources yourself. So in regards to the skills, again, for leveling, you will start out with Ice Lances here. The first thing you'll just be running a compound source still the whole time instead of this. For start, you'll have your compound source that you'll level with, and you'll use this pretty much all the way. And then you will have a blink and a blurry steps here as well, and then you'll have your Frost Terra as your fifth. In regards to leveling, you will start off, you will end up getting your Ice Imbue early on, which will just help with some extra explosions. And then you will get your Aura skill around level 50. They are changing elemental resistance again to where it will be giving resistances. So most likely early on you will end up running elemental resistance instead of elemental amplification until you get the resistance on your gear. So the character itself does use a lot of legendary items. So it is going to be a little bit easier to not feel pressured on resistances because of how they're changing legendary items to now have craftable mods on them. So you will be able to craft mods on some of the legendaries we were using before that we didn't have anything on. But this will help bridge that early gap here. And then there is one little trick we get to do using concentrated support. So this says can only affect you while you're only affected by one aura. And there is a special thing about Frigid Domain is that Frigid Domain doesn't actually affect you. When you have Frigid Domain on, as you see, the activates the aura. The aura only affects enemies. So because of that, you can run concentrated support on this because your character is only being affected by the single aura. So we can use this to really push this to a ton of extra aura effectiveness and get a lot of damage out of that. And then again, we still have our Ice Imbue here. Adding on this Frost Spirit is something you can do as soon as you actually get the mana around for it, but it might take you a bit before you actually get to that point. It's really going to depend on what gear and what other things you have available, so keep that in mind. In regards to the actual gear itself, the leveling gear that you're going to be looking for that they did mention in the patch notes is going to basically be a lot more common. So let me see, legendary aptitude, what was it? Legendary something. Is this the wrong one? Am I looking at Whispering Mists? Oh, I am. All right, let's go ahead and pull up the oops, I didn't mean wiki news. So they did mention that basically legendary gear will start dropping much more commonly. Legendary gear will drop with legendary aptitude, which allows you to craft things on them. But they said that gear that has only two legendary aptitude will be far more common, and it will be bound. So hopefully this is going to basically ensure that the availability of legendary gear is higher. But we're going to kind of have to wait and see, I suppose. They say this is the legendary gear is going to be much more common, so I'm hoping so. But either way, there's going to be a few legendary items that will be very, very useful now. So the change that you can see here to Strange Snow, they have left the Affliction effect, which is the only mod that you really, really care about on this necklace. And it can now have up to 4 crafted mods. So what that means is right now this mod pretty much just has the Affliction effect, and you don't care about the other mods, especially because for the end game version of this build you are going on ES. So you don't care about this life, you don't care about this life regen, you probably don't care about the cold res. So this means you get to craft whatever you want on here. So this means if you want to craft probably another Affliction effect on there, you might be able to get away with that. Or you can craft some resistances on here, or just energy shield or reap. There's plenty of other things that you can craft on here that are all going to be very, very useful. Corrupted Marrow is here. Let's see how many crafted mods this one can get. I'd probably, let's see how this has changed up really if I looked at this before. Corrupted Marrow is basically unchanged, which is fine. So it still drops with 0 LP, but it just has all of its mods on it, which is fine. That helmet is already perfect. It doesn't really need to change anything. You get the extra movement speed out of it. You still get your extra max Terras, and you get a nice amount of ES as well. And then we have Kingly Armor, which has been basically kept all of the things you care about as well. You get the Terra Charge Restoration here that sets it to a fixed amount, as well as you get your +1 Terra and your extra movement speed as well. So this is going to be nice, and this is also going to have up to 4 crafted mods, so this item is just getting better as well. Then we have King's Boon, which it is keeping the 2 most important mods that we care about, which is the More with Less, as well as a Reap Source for you. This is a really high, it procs all the time, so this is actually really, really useful. And again, with the 4 crafted mods on it now, before the downside of the boots that was kind of upsetting is the fact that they always had a really low amount of movement speed on them. So if you had the non-corrupted version with this, then you just had really low move speed boots. So you'll be able to craft higher move speed on them again without having to just specifically hit this corruption, as well as you can craft other things on them, right? So you're going to be able to craft a +1 or a +2 cold or things like that if that's what you're trying to get on there. So these are some of the legendaries I think that are going to be most helpful when it comes to leveling. I mean, I presume they're going to be more common now, but we'll just have to see. Either way, were not very expensive ever anyways. Like, these are a couple FE a piece typically. And then everything else, you're basically just looking for your Affliction effects. So starting off, when you have your character and it's brand new and you're first leveling, you want to create a filter that is specifically looking for Affliction effect on all of these pieces of gear. So you want to ensure you're looking for wands with Affliction effect, rings with Affliction effect, belt, your necklace, and then that's it. I mean, in regards to boots, you just want move speed boots with some defenses, and for gloves, you can try to get Reap on there if you can. It's not that big of a deal, but it is nice to get if you can get it. Otherwise, you just basically go for some gloves that have any amount of defenses on them and just basically get your resistances. While you're leveling, Marksman's Bracers are really good because they do affect the damage on your projectile skill. So you can use those while you're leveling, and then again you swap off of them later on. Yeah, so let's go ahead and showcase what it's like, I guess, mapping a bit with this. While you are in these early stages, you will end up on a bit of a hybrid build like this, to the point where it is recommended that you don't even run seal conversion or anything, and you won't have this frost spirit either. You'll just run your full life and ES here with ice and Bew, and you'll basically just be running this full hybrid build with your life and ES here. So let's go ahead and showcase something that I have on here. I'm sure I have something we can run. And let's go ahead and showcase this map here. My res is going to be kind of trashed, but I think we should be okay. But you will see here the good thing basically about this is both your Frost Terra as well as your Ice Lances can both proc your Cold Pulses, which to be honest is going to carry the majority of your mapping experience that you're going to be getting. So this is kind of the same experience you're getting. You're basically shooting a projectile and you're using blurry steps to go forward. And then your Frost Terra will basically hit things, and your Ice Imbue will kind of get those explosions to help kind of scale your clear. Again, once you get a few of your affliction sources, basically on every piece of gear or most of your pieces of gear, and as well as like maybe 4 reap sources total, then you can go ahead and make that swap over to the full version of the build. I will cover that in another build though, or in another video. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. And other than that, see you in the next one.